Welcome back everyone. Today we've got a super amazing foam dart blaster, and we're going to talk about what it can do, what it can't do. It can pretty much do everything. So I guess before we do anything we should probably turn it on. Yes, it has a LCD screen which I'll be covering. So it is a full-size dart blaster at this point, single stage. You can see the flywheels in there. Now I do not have the protective covers in here, so don't use it like that or in here, but for the purpose of the video that's fine. It's got lots of curves on it, which I really like. It has got these inlays. It's got all these hole throughs, has carbon fiber parts. Ooh, I like carbon fiber parts. And obviously our 2.5-inch touchscreen. It's got a battery, LiPo battery, 2200 4S. You can fit smaller if you want. The reason why it's out the back is because that makes it far more balanced. If you have it in the front or in front of your hand, obviously the blaster becomes heavier. So having it in the back helps to balance it out. It's got a built-in stock, adjustable, which you can just pull out and do these up wherever you like. If I'm doing them up, I am. So you got a stock now. You can obviously change the length of these, and you can push that back in. Okay, so this blaster is a 2-stage trigger. What that means is there's a switch at the front and there's a switch at the back. And the advantage of that is we can do either semi or burst at the front of the trigger, so just the first pull, or we can do auto all the way back. The advantages of that is that you don't have to put an additional switch, which makes the electronics easier. Also, I find that while the switch might be perfect for one person in the perfect location, it won't be for someone else's. And this is a much simpler idea of just like hair trigger back and then all the way back for full auto. We have another trigger down here. This, I guess, is going to be the most controversial part about the entire blaster. You can decide what you want to do with that. So you can decide to make it a Rev Trigger, which it's not currently functioning like that. You can make it do nothing. You can make it be a high-low mode, which is what it's currently in. So what that is that I like to engage with people close and far away. Although I don't know if you can see that down here. It's currently 10% power. If I pull that rev trigger, now it's 39. So that's the idea behind that. So that's really the outside of the blaster. It's a solenoid blaster. I always seem to forget to tell people that, which means it's got that crack when you shoot. It also has a bit of a punch. And you can see that looks amazing in my opinion. So what we're going to do now is we will swap over and talk about the different firing modes you can do with this. Basically what the screen can do, which is going to take quite a long time. Okay, let's boot that up. Okay, so at the top here we have got the front trigger mode. So that's currently in semi, so we can click that. Now it's in burst, so if I pull the trigger, you can see it's shooting 3, back to semi, shooting 1, and if I pull it back, you'll see it should update this to say auto. While it shakes us all to death, right? You've got the ammo counter here. That's currently counting up infinitely. So 26, press the button, and resets back to 0. We have a hit log, which is currently counting the hit people you have hit. And then this is how many times you've got hit. Now you see it started counting down. I cannot shoot until that timer has finished. So, and now I can shoot. Most of the battles I've been to, you're supposed to, when you get shot, you can't shoot for a minute or whatever, or you're supposed to walk back to a base, then sit at the base for a minute and then come back. So you can use that mode to program that. You can turn that off completely, so it's just a counter. You have got a round counter, oops, which I have double clicked, there you go, just counting down for a minute. We can adjust that. We've got the rate of fire, which is how fast it's shooting, and then we have the power. So this is currently 2-stage, so by default it's in low mode, and you'll see that when I pull the third trigger, the number will change to 39% and the animation will speed up. A lot, but you know. You have the battery down here, which is supposed to be a percentage of the voltage instead of a useless voltage, because the voltages mean nothing to anyone. So you can get the voltage, but that displays that as a percentage. This here will also change. See, it's doing 1 picture now. We go back to burst. It's supposed to do 3 now. 2, 3, and then a gap. Okay, whatever. Then if you don't like all this because you think it's a bit busy and it's a bit hard to see, you can do the alternate home page, which is by pressing that. You have now got the alternate home page, which just has your ammo counter, your timers, and your trigger modes. You don't have the rate of fire, and you don't have the power, mainly because neither of them are that useful, particularly rate of fire. Basically never change that, so why bother? But if we go back to our original home and we go to settings, we now have our settings menu. So we're going to go through every possible setting we've got in here and what you can do with them. Now, some of them are very self-explanatory. Burst. Okay, that is the burst count. How many do you want to shoot per burst? We can go down to 2, or all the way up to 5. Now you'll notice that this is a slider. You can push the button once, or you can actually push in the slider like you can in Windows. Not that helpful in this particular situation when the number's only between 2 and 5. I've also got the numbers at the top and the writing at the bottom, which seems counterintuitive until you start using it and you realize that you'll actually have your hand covering the number when you normally use the blaster. So I turned it around to have the writing, which you don't really need to know once you've read it once, but you do want to see the number. Okay, we've got mag set up. So this is a sub menu. So it does mag size. Right, so we currently have infinity, which basically means count up forever, which, yes, there is an end to the forever, but whatever, right? You then can set the size of 5 other custom sized mags. This one is set to 5, this one's set to 1, and these ones have not been set. So if we set them, let's take that one and say we want a mag of, what's that going to be? Okay, 43, done. Okay, so now it's going to remember 43. So when you restart the blaster, this will all be saved. We then have count down or up. Now, as long as it's not in infinity, you can change the direction if you want to count up or you want to count down. Personally, if I've got a specified mag size, I always want to count down. And then you've got this mag empty. This is, what do you want to do when the magazine runs out? Do you want to stop firing or do you want to continue firing? I don't know. Normally you'd think you'd want stop, but I have got the option. So if we go back now, let's set that smaller because obviously 43 is going to take a while. So let's go back and test that, right? Okay, so we've got 5 rounds. We can shoot them. And now I can't shoot because I've run out of ammo. Alright, let's go back to semi. Now we can shoot. Now let's shoot one more. Now burst is set to more than one. We've only got 1 round left. Well, let's see what happens. We'd only shot 1 because we've only got 1 left. Nice. Okay, moving on to timer. This is the timer. So you can set it to count up or count down. We're going to count down. You have got how long the round is, so 1 minute. You have got a warning, which is in seconds. So let's make that 10 seconds. Can we do? No, we can't. And a loop timer. Now, loop timer was a request from one of my Patreons. Or was it? No, it was actually from Foamcast Radio, who wanted to be able to loop the timer so it never ends. Okay, now let's go back because this is obviously going to take a minute. Okay, so you will find that, I think we've enabled it, it will count down, and then I think we set it to like 9 or 6 seconds. At 6 seconds it's going to start flashing, and then when it gets to the bottom, runs out of time, it's going to start again because we put the loop timer on. And that was because I'm told that in Wars, zombies just reset every 5 minutes. It'll be useful to have a warning when that 5 minutes is going to be, which can be the flashing, and then it will automatically reset. And so you'll know exactly when the next wave and the next wave and the next wave is coming, assuming that the people running the event have something like this that can actually do every 5 minutes and so on. So we'll just wait a few more seconds for that. But that's obviously an option. You can do the normal, click the button, it goes for 2 minutes and then stops. So here we go, it's flashing. Get ready for the next zombie wave, or you're about to run out of the round. You know, we need to go and get everyone. And then bam, start it again. Cool. We have Flywheels. Now this is, well, we'll start with that one. Motors. Right, what KV motors? Really, they should all be 2450s for single stage. This is just a hangover from what I had, so I've got 2700 KV motors, which is far too high a KV rating for a single stage, and that's why you'll never see me ever use this thing at 100%. So you might as well use the lower ones, but that option is there. You then have high power and low power. Now I've talked about how that there is a low mode and a high mode if you have configured the blaster to use that secondary button, or third button actually, for that. So we'll just have a look at high power. High power, you now have the infinite mode, which is basically not limited, so it'll go at 100% pretty much. Then you have these other 5 other options. But before we move on, we'll see that there's a message here saying limited to 54. We'll come back to that. That's imposed by an admin limit, which we'll come and talk about later on. So if we're set 20, okay, now what does 20 mean? So that 20 is 20% of the power, and then you can call this next, and then this is supposed to be the name. So the problem with just using a percentage saying 20 is like, well, what does that mean? No one's like, oh, you need to have all your blasters in 20%, that is the limit, is it? Do they? They're like, no. They have a limit saying, normally, let's say 100 FPS is normally what people will say as an example. Right, so we've now set this profile as 100 FPS, and 100 FPS, let's say that is 47%. Let's call it 50% because that makes more sense, right? And now you'll know that, now remember that these are all saved. So the idea is you would go through and set up, I don't know, whatever you want. Stock, 100, 120, 130, 150, or whatever the limits are that you would commonly want. This can't be preset pretty much because it does depend on the darts you use. Will affect the FPS, and so will conditions and whatnot. But that has the facility for it, right? You also have the same thing for low power. Now, presumably, you would set the low ones lower than the high ones, but you can set the same concept. So it's quickly just come here, click the button that you want for the current match. There is constant FPS, which is currently disabled. It needs a lot more work. Where are we? Pusher. Okay, we've got the pusher delay. So we've got the basic power, which is effectively your rate of fire, so 100%. But 100% of what? Well, you need to be able to change the settings for your different pusher. So there is the pusher delay. Oh, yes, right. So what that is that you need to wait for the wheels to spin up before we can shoot the dart. So that is the delay waiting for that, which I've just put as 200 milliseconds. So you can increase or decrease that. That effectively will reduce or increase the delay between firing, but you do need to wait for the wheels to spin up before it can shoot them. Otherwise you'll get inconsistent FPSs and potentially jams. You then have the two settings. Because this is a solenoid, you need to have a push time and a pull time, or if you like, a return time. So the push time is, once that's set to 100%, how long it will push for, so 27 milliseconds at the moment, and then it will pull or allow for 55 millisecond retract, and that is one shooting the dart and then returning the pusher ready for the next one. So normally you'd set those and then leave them, and you'd adjust the power through that. We have the Rev Trigger, which is the third trigger. Now, like I said, we've got it currently in low-high. That means by default it's slow, and when you pull the trigger it's high mode. You can invert that, which means by default it's in high mode, and you pull the trigger it's in low mode. And what else do we have? You've got just Rev Trigger, or you can turn that off. And we can see that if we put that, well, actually, let's just make it a Rev Trigger. Now, when it's in Rev mode, then if the low mode is ignored because there is no way of adjusting between high and low, it's just always in high mode, but it works like a Rev Trigger, so I'll pull that. Cool. Let's put that back because I think I'll forget about that later, as in need it. You got screen dim, which is pretty obvious. Oh, but it doesn't really show because the camera counters the brightness. Useful for indoor night matches, obviously. Otherwise, can't see why I'd use it. You have a stats page. So we have shot 44 rounds, we've changed the mag 4 times, we've played for 12 minutes, I've hit 4 people, I've got hit once, so my KD is 4. So I'm awesome, I guess. Or I don't know, is 4-1 awesome? Who knows? Maybe with only 44 rounds. Anyway, that I thought would be super cool to know. They are reset when you reset the blaster. On to the next page. So we've got admin limit, we've got color, and we've got lock settings, got hit, battery, and support. So admin limit. Okay, This presents you with a username and password. What this is for is to make the blaster compliant with every imaginable game mode that I can think of. So people have a problem with high-powered flywheel blasters, or just flywheel blasters in general, because they have too high a rate of fire, and it's unfair with springers. And of the obvious thing, if you go to end war, any kind of battle where there is a FPS limit, we showed you how easy it was to increase and decrease the limit. Well, that's something you can't have in a official restricted mode. You can't just allow people to go, oh, just be good. Now I need to remember what the password is. Good. Right, so there is a enter password mode. You can then, now obviously I've set this up prior, you can then limit the FPS, which is what we roughly talked about before. It's currently set to 54. So that means that irrelevant of what FPS profile you have selected, the maximum percent that you can shoot this blaster is 54. And we will reduce it to 22. You can limit the trigger mode, so disable auto and burst. Should be set to, well, it's set to yes. Might need to check that actually works. And you can adjust the rate of fire, because while I originally had just disabling semi and burst, you could still feather the trigger incredibly quickly and still have a great rate of fire. So we've got the ability to slow it down, and 100 is, inserts no gap at 100, but it is 1 round a second at 0. Well, it's actually worse than that, plus the time it takes to shoot the dart and return the dart. So that's less than a round a minute. So not around a minute, that'll be insane. A round a second. However, that does not impose a delay on the trigger. It just means that when you pull the trigger, it doesn't wait a second and then shoot the dart. It will shoot the dart straight away, but then you can't shoot another one for a second. And hopefully we'll show you this in a second. Set code is where you set the password. Now the idea, of course, is that admin would know the password, so you'd give them the blaster, they'd set these settings, and then they would set their own code, and then give the blaster back to you, so you can't cheat. Now there is the obvious situation where what happens if you forget your password, or the admin doesn't give it to you, and there is this button in the middle which goes through a process allowing you to reset the password, which will take you to my website where you type in a code. It will make you wait a week or something, and then you can type in the code, and you can then it will reset all the passwords back to 0. The reason for the week is obviously you don't want to go to a battle, be given a password, and then just reset it 2 seconds later, and then what's the point? I also didn't want to require ludicrous reflashing, soldering situations that do go on if you didn't get the password. So it's actually wildly complicated from my point of view, because it creates a code, sends it to you, bang it in the website, and then it comes back with a response code unique to the blaster, yada yada yada. But it's incredibly complicated, so it's really simple for you guys. We set the maximum power. I think we set it. Did we set it to 10? Well, it's set to 10 now. And we think we've disabled. Oh yeah, so we can't change it out of order. So if we go all the way back. So now we have got a super rubbish trash gun, haven't we? But that's the point, right? Now I realized that if you had a blaster that was like this, it would be useless. But that is the point. The point is, this is how bad you can make it. Doesn't mean you need to make it that bad. Okay, we've now got colors, which we'll come back to because that's going to take 2 hours. We've got lock settings. So this is a different kind of lock system. So we've got a power on. Do you want a power on lock? Yes. Do I want to lock settings? Yes. Do I want to set a code? Yes. And what this is now going to present us with a username and password. So we cannot change the settings unless you know the password. The advantage of that is that you can then give this blaster to a child or someone that won't change all the settings on it and give you back a disaster. And likewise, if you turn this off now, you now have to put in a password. We then have the got hit. So this is our timer. So when you get hit, how long do you want to be prevented from shooting? Up to 300 seconds or nothing. So nothing will means that it won't stop you from shooting ever. You have battery, which has quite a lot of settings. For it to know what the correct voltage is, which affects the ramp up, because as the battery gets more and more flat, it needs more and more time to fire the darts and various other features. So knowing exactly what the voltage is quite important. And this depends on the hardware. So I've got settings for my recommended parts from AliExpress. And then I've got settings based on using the Nerf Arduino board, which is simpler to install but probably costs more, but has different settings. So you need to set the actual 5-volt voltage, which is 5.22, which is measured. This is the default settings, which works with this. You have a high resistor, which is 7,500 ohms. And I think I said it the other way around. This is the high one, and that's the low one. And that's the default settings telling you that that's what these normally are, but it may be these settings here if you're using the other board. I've obviously wanted this to work with all kinds of hardware, not specific to anything, and that's why I've had to add a whole bunch of different settings like this. So that means that this will work with any hardware, not just some particular board or some particular parts. That also goes with the pusher, which is why I exposed those 2 different settings, the push time and the return time, so you can get it to work with different hardware. You've got information, which basically is the current voltage, which is 16.558, and in theory that should be with a measured voltage, the same as the measured voltage or close enough. It then also tells you that if you make any of these changes, they only actually take effect once you return to the home screen and wait, because it takes an average, and these settings don't get written to the Arduino until you go to the home screen. You have the low battery alarm. So this is just a flashing light. It'll just flash in the corner. So what percent do you want that to happen at? So I've got it set to 25, which is actually the highest you can set it at. There is also a secondary mechanism, which I can't remember what the exact voltage is right now, that so this is just a flashing thing. It doesn't stop you from using the blaster, but it will stop the blaster from functioning once it gets below a certain point. So those are battery settings. You got support, which is pretty much, can you go here? Or what version of it is, the Arduino and the Nano. Duh. I mean the Arduino and the Nexton display. Copyright information, and the idea is that people will be able to use this electronics, because obviously this is taking me a mind-blowing amount of time to come up with all this stuff, and put it in their different 3D printed blasters, so that will allow for them to have their information here. me to have mine, which is obviously revolving around the electronics, but in this case it is the same. Now, colors. I foresaw that everyone was going to complain about the colors because you cannot please anyone. So I have gone and spent most of my time, it would seem, stuffing around making this completely customizable. There are just so many different options you can have. Currently there aren't profiles, if you like, but I'd like to add that, presuming that the community gets on board and actually wants to do that. So this is my default profile, and you can change virtually everything. So everyone's like, oh, it's too busy, it's too red, it's too blue, it's too green, it's too yellow, it's too black. I want a blue one, I want an orange one, I want a pink one. The answer is yes, you can have it all. I made it like this, which is RGB colors, because it was a good way of showing what we can do. I had it all in shades of red, which actually looked better with my blaster, which is black and red, than having it kind of RGB. But then it didn't really look like it was a color screen. So let's make a change, okay? So if you want to get rid of that image, let's get rid of that, okay? Home images. Okay, now this is just like you see on the screen. You've got the trigger, you've got the ammo, you've got the timer, you've got the pusher and the wheel. So we're going to change the wheel, and we are going to change the background. You can select between the ones that are in here, I think. And we're going to turn it off. So it's just blue. If we go back, you will find it is now just blue. Just blue, there it is. No background. Okay, but you're like, I don't like the red and the white. Let me change that. Okay, let's change it. Here is a little picture. Whoops, this one here. This is what we're looking at right here. It's in a demonstration. Okay, so you want the text to be, I don't know, yellow. You want the picture to be some funny color. A lightish greenish thing. And you want the background to be purple, hey? Yeah. I think that's all we got. Oh, and pushed. We're not going to use that at the moment. So let's go back and see. Look at that. You have a pink with yellow and greyish now looking style. Okay, if that's what you want, that's what you can do. Now you've got these background borders as well. Each individual ones of these you can all change. You also have these background buttons, so let's change those, shall we? They are under settings images. This is currently a green one. Let's get rid of that. Let's change the buttons. Text is white. Let's change them to yellow. And the background can be blue. And the push button will just leave. The border, we've got a black border. I've already forgotten what was set, haven't we? Bright green border for the buttons. Okay, that should be rather disgusting. Okay. Ugh. It actually comes out completely differently on the screen than it does on the blaster. Funny. Background border, we'll have red. And the background, we're going to make it a blue-ish color. Okay, right, navigation buttons, which are these ones down here. Let's make them yellow. Sure, why not? Yellow on screen. Sounds horrible. I think it's the wrong thing I've done. I'm supposed to be changing this, aren't I, to some hideous colour. Oh well, whatever. Okay, there we go. We have wrecked it now. But if that's what you want to do, that's what you can do. So you can now reset the blaster once you return to the home page, and all those settings will stay. Now if you make a horrible mistake and it becomes hideous looking, you can reset those settings somewhere. I think I clicked the wrong button. Reset. Yes. Okay, please restart it. And we are back to my RGB goodness. We also have restored default, which we just clicked on, and current values. Now, this is what I had to create. I didn't have to create it, but I did create it as a means of setting it up and then getting all the color values out, and then being able to set them up as default. And as I've said previously, I'm pretty sure that we're gonna, if this takes off, and lots of people make blasters with this electronics in it, we can make different profiles, and then they'll have different color settings, and I need to know that, and they would obviously need to be able to send those to me so they can then read them off of here. And this is an example of how many color settings we have. Now these are not related to the images, these are just different colors of the different parts. So not the background image colors, just the different colors everywhere. So there's 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages, 4 pages, 5 pages, 6 pages, no, 6 and a bit pages, which is 61 different color options. Well, that's not the right word. Different things you can change to any of the 65,000 different colors. So don't come complaining that you can't get the right color, because 61 different different parts of the UI can be customized to your colors. But that's really it. And I like that. So it's in low mode, pull the trigger for high mode, pull the trigger. Oop, no ammo. Oh, I got hit. Oh, I can't shoot. I did restart the blaster, obviously, which did reset these things. Yeah, so that's what I've done. Hopefully you guys like it. Hopefully you guys will use it and customize it to the color scheme of your wildest dreams and someone else's horrors. And like I said, you can use the default, change that to a more obvious ammo counter and trigger. Alright guys, if you've made it this long, good job. I'd love to if you could join the Patreon, and we can do some more super cool stuff like this in the future. If not, that's cool. This should be for free download and no charge for the download and the wiring. Have got wiring diagrams. I'll probably do videos on that, but I really need to print an entirely new one and do a new video on how to do that, because this has been through many different versions of wiring, so the wiring inside of this particular one is a mess. So yeah, thanks guys.